Welcome to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vinoski. Industry has a million cool stories, and Jim talks to the movers and shakers who are making them happen. Let's dive in.
Hi, welcome back to Manufacturing Talks. We're sponsored by Cosgrove Content, wordsmiths for industry. If you are in manufacturing and you struggle to find someone to write your material in a way people can understand it, that's what Cosgrove does. Check it out at cosgrovecontent.com. And I am really happy to introduce my guest today, Brandon Acker. He's the president of Titan Abrasive Systems. Welcome, Brandon.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me, Jim. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and welcome to the wall of metal. You know, we were talking about that before we got on. My buddy Corey, who did my actual metal prints and then all my bands behind me. Part of the theme.
Yep, very interesting background. Much
well,
better than the virtual Zoom backgrounds people use these days.
Yep, and it ties in nicely with what we're going to talk about today,
yep.
Right? So this one's really interesting. I told Brandon before we got on, this is my first show where I don't know the person going in. So I got introduced to Brandon through mutual contacts, but it's a great story. I was telling him I got introduced 30 plus years ago to sandblasting on chemical piping systems and the need to do that right. I've got also, I didn't tell you this, I've got a little brother who is an absolute gearhead, car and motorcycle buff. He's got his own sandblaster in his garage shop. So
oh, nice.
I'm sure you can share stories both from the industrial side and that personal car buff side that would wow us. But yeah, so tell us a little bit, first of all, about how you got into this.
Yeah, it's a kind of an unusual market business to be in. For people, kind of a niche thing, so it always catches people as to how you got into it, or people that even understand what it is. Most people ask me, "Oh, what do you do?" And when I tell them, "Yeah, we manufacture, abrasive air blast equipment," they just kind of glaze over. So I started with my uncle actually started the business back in 1953. So I got into it, as a kid, helping out at the shop, building valves and helping assemble stuff, and always loved going in there and working, and it just kind of, blossomed from there. I've done some other stuff in between, but always been involved in it. And then over the years, kind of took more and more of a position in the company. And about 10 years ago, I took over as president. My uncle had passed away about 20 years ago. My cousin was running it, and then I ended up, taking over from him about 10 years ago.
All right, so it's in your blood.
It's in my blood.
Very cool.
I'm probably the only little kid who dressed up as a sandblaster for Halloween. People were like, "Oh, what are you, a spaceman?" I'm like, "No, I'm a sandblaster."
That's awesome. So yeah, you touched on it. Maybe I should have opened with this: is tell people what the systems you do are for.
Okay. So abrasive blasting, it's commonly referred to, or was referred to, as sandblasting. It's not so much anymore, because it's very few people even use sand anymore due to the hazards of it. So it's basically like air blasting, media blasting. It's used primarily for surface preparation. On steel is probably the big one. Anything that gets coated, whether it be painted, powder coated, sealed, usually gets blasted before the coating goes on, to give it that profile, kind of rough up the metal so the coating adheres better. It's used for, cleaning off rusty old metal, repairing cars, trucks, repainting things, taking the paint off. There's kind of an array of equipment. We have some portable machines, which everything kind of starts with your basic, like the actual sandblaster, the sand pot, people call it, which is actually the blast machine. Can be just like a portable machine that you have that's filled with the media, hooked up to an air compressor. The compressed air is what media falls into that airstream. You're mainly blasting with almost like compressed air is what you see, with just a fine mist of media in there, and that's for preparing the surface. That unit can be just a portable that people can have out in the field, pipelines use them out in the middle of nowhere to blast the ends of the pipes before they weld them or coat them. Farmers use them for out in the field, repairing their tractors in their barn, cleaning them up. Would be more like a portable machine hooked up to a portable compressor. And everything kind of just builds off of that. Once you have that blast machine, we use that same blast machine that then goes into a blast cabinet that we make, which is a square cabinet, has gloves in the front. You put a part in there, stand in front, put your hands in the gloves, look through the window, blast your part inside. You can just do it in plain clothes. It's not messy. Everything's contained in the unit. Mainly smaller parts that are done in there, in the cabinets, and that has a blast machine connected to it, which also has a recovery system. So once you go in those contained environments like a cabinet, you're reusing that blast media over and over. So the media gets sucked out of the bottom of the cabinet, goes up into a reclaimer, which cleans it, and then dumps it back into that blast machine. So it's like a continuous loop that you can just keep blasting and blasting with that material.
Interesting. Yep.
And then we also make blast rooms, which are basically the same principle as the cabinet. Has a enclosed environment that you're blasting in. It's just much larger. Can be a huge room that you can pull a tractor trailer and an airplane in, but has the same principle that you have your blast machine in there. You have a reclaim system that's taking the media back out of the room, cleaning it, returning it to the blast machine. Just larger in that instead of putting your hands in gloves, a guy will put on a suit and actually goes into the room. So he's in there in a suit and a helmet, holding a hose and blasting, larger items.
Okay.
Principle's kind of the same. Has dust collection to keep the air clean, so you can see what you're doing. And then we manufacture all that equipment: the blast equipment, the rooms, the reclamation systems, dust collection systems. We do all that in-house. We design it, engineer it, fabricate it, powder coat it. Yep. Get it all ready. So that's pretty much our line of equipment based on it. It all just starts with that one blast machine. That's like the step one, is you can have that blast machine and just build off of that.
Yep. So you covered the kind of two pieces of the business I know. The portable machine, like my old painting buddies at the chemical plant 30 plus years ago used out in our back 40 to prepare our pipes before they went into the operating units of our chemical plant. And then the box unit that you talked about is what my brother has in his shop. So you touched on the media and how sand is kind of fallen out of favor because of the environmental concerns. So go over a little bit what people are using today.
It kind of comes down to what you're doing, what kind of results you're trying to get, what you're blasting, little bit of the cost. People with the portables are using, the less expensive medias. Sand got a bad rap because of the silica that's in it. It goes in everything. With construction industry has it too, because bricks, concrete, everything has sand in it, and it's fine when it's sand. It's just once they cut it, saw it, goes into dust that you don't want to breathe that in.
Right.
With issues, and that's where sand got its bad rap from. So people switch from that. If they're outdoors, that they're not recovering the media and trying to reclaim it, which would be like someone, the farmer out in the field blasting his tractor, the pipeline, someone out in, usually when they're remote, if you're on 100 acres, no one really cares, you're just blasting outside. Usually you're using like a Black Beauty is a brand name, which is a coal slag. There's crushed glass, that is usually what we say like a spray to waste. You're not trying to reclaim it. It doesn't last long. Like coal slag usually breaks down. Once those small particles hit steel, they pretty much explode into dust, so you can't reuse them. Once you get into those contained environments like the blast cabinet or a blast room, that's where the real cost savings comes in, or your return on your investment, recouping your money from that, reusing that media over and over again. You save on the media because you're not buying it, you're reusing it over again. There's not as much waste because it's reusing. So it's pretty much just the dust that's coming off the product you're blasting that you're getting rid of, which is in the dust collector, but you don't have that material. Like in the old days, if you were outside and you were blasting with sand and you had a tractor trailer full of sand, you have 1,000 pounds of sand. When you get done blasting with 1,000 pounds of sand, you now have 1,000 pounds of sand dust that you now have to get rid of.
Yeah.
A mess. So you have a lot of environmental expenses how do you dispose of that depending on what
Right.
you're blasting. So you have a lot of product to get rid of and costs to get rid of that. Once you go into a blast room, if you're using medias that can be reclaimed, now you don't have that. You can use, your 100 pounds, you can use it 10, 20, 100 times over again, depending on the media. So you don't have that waste to get rid of.
Mhm.
So that saves you. And then you're not buying the media either. You're using it over and over again. So you really get a lot of cost savings there that you end up. A blast room can pay for itself in a couple of years just from that savings on the media and the disposal costs. It's just cleaner. The reusable medias do a better job. They're not as dusty. So the environment is easier to clean up with the dust collection system. You can see better. And then that product finish, once you're going into like a room, depending upon what it is they're blasting, for blasting carbon steel, or you're blasting stainless or fiberglass, aluminum, you'd choose your media depending on what that is, what kind of profile, surface finish you wanted. Steel's obviously pretty durable. You can blast it with pretty much anything. Most people on steel are using steel grit, or
Oh, really?
Yep, which is just everything kind of looks like sand. It's all in that kind of same shape. If you pick up a handful of it, it just kind of same size, kind of looks like sand. But steel grit is just looks like sand, but they're little tiny pieces of steel
Interesting.
in there. Obviously much heavier than sand would be.
Yeah.
And it lasts 100, 200 times. You can reuse it over and over before it breaks down. And that can be used on steel because it's durable, works really good, takes coatings off quick. If you get into other products like a stainless steel that people are using, we do a lot with the food industry, people who are manufacturers of equipment that goes into food processing equipment, kitchen equipment, all the stainless steel equipment they use are using like a glass bead on there, whereas a glass bead is pretty much your medias are in pretty much two categories. You have either things that are round like glass bead or steel shot, which are just like little balls, little round items that are when they hit the surface, they're not giving you that profile. They're not etching into it. They more do like a peening. They kind of just bounce off the product, as opposed to your grits, like the old like sand would be, or aluminum oxide or steel grit are very angular. So they're going to cut into that product and create that profile that a coating would adhere to. But on stainless, you're not going to want to do that. You don't want that profile on there. They're not coating it. They just want to clean it up after it's welded. There's some weld splatter on there, and some discoloration on the material, and they want to make it look good. Regardless what they're using it for, they want it to look nice. Usually when they ship it to the customer, so they'll glass bead blast it, which gives it a nice finished surface, kind of like a nice satin finish, takes all those weird welding marks and all off it, so it looks like a nicer product. There's plastic media as well that's used in same thing, little round balls of plastic, used a lot in aerospace. Softer things like aluminum, when you're just cleaning something up, again, that plastic's really soft, doesn't profile, doesn't cut into metal, just really nice at cleaning things off. Like you want to do on a jet engine. They don't want to destroy it and abrade it with something hard. They just want to clean it up. So a lot of that depends on the product, what it is you're blasting, and what your end result would be, the profile, how deep you want the profile, what you're coating it with, is pretty much how people are choosing their medias. Equipment wise, pretty much the same equipment. Our machines will work with almost any media you put in there. We have our valves, which control the flow of the media, are all a multimedia valve. So it's designed to work with different media. So if a customer buys our equipment, buys our machines, and decide they're blasting with one type of media for a product, and their business, something changes, they get new products, or they're a job shop that has varying products, they can change out that media and blast with something different without having to get different equipment.
Oh, yeah. You've mentioned some different applications, and the stuff I knew about was more the prep for coating kinds of things, but there's a lot more to it than that. If there are people out there who might have some applications now that they're thinking about, whether it's for a quality aspect, like you mentioned with the food equipment manufacturers, where they just want something cleaned up and get rid of weld marks and things like that. Do you do consulting with customers to help guide them on what systems they should be looking at for their particular applications, and what maybe even additional applications they ought to be thinking about?
Yep, and we do we have engineers on staff, and we are coding guys and our field guys, and we try to get people find out before we develop a system for them or design it, like what they want to use it for. What's their product? What's their end result? Are they going to code it? Or are they trying to clean it? And try to help them determine that media type. We can test products for people if they send in a piece of steel or a product they have, and they want us to blast it with a couple different medias to send it back to them to see this is what this media does to it. This is what this media will do. Help them find. Some people, it's kind of like a little trial and error. They get the machine, and then they're trying to dial it into exactly what they want. The pressures on the machine, they might change up medias or the size of the media. So there's kind of different factors to it besides the media. Media also comes in different grit sizes. So a real common one would be that people are probably familiar with is aluminum oxide. Aluminum oxide, again, looks like sand, kind of can be brownish in color. Aluminum oxide is what's found on sandpaper. Is what's stuck to that sandpaper that makes it gritty is aluminum oxide. And medias go in the same categories like sandpaper. If you have like a 40 grit sandpaper is really coarse, and if you rub that on wood, it's really going to take a lot of material off and cut through it really quick. Or you go up to in the hundreds, 200, 400, 1,000 grit sandpaper, it's going to be really fine. And if you get so fine, it's almost like polishing, not really taking that material off. And media is the same way. You can get aluminum oxide that's in, a 40 grit aluminum oxide that's going to be pretty coarse, and it's going to give you a deep profile. You can get 400 grit aluminum oxide, which is almost like a powder. So it's going to not cut much of a surface, not give much of a profile. So besides picking just what type of media, then you're also picking what size media, what pressure you're blasting at. So we try to help people to determine all that and figure out as much as we can beforehand. And then we also do it when we're on site. If someone buys our equipment, our guys go out to install it, they're going to get media on site when they're there, and they're going to test blast with it, and show them how to use it, how to maintain the equipment, what products do what. Usually we have them have some product there that we can blast while we're in there to show their guys how to use it, get best results from our equipment and from the media.
So that's even more interesting. There's things here I never even imagined, because the basics I knew is, number one, you might be wanting to remove something before coating a material, so old paint, rust, whatever. Plus, you want to get particular surface texture, right, to grab that paint. But now you're telling me there's kind of this whole other end where you can even do polishing. The quality stuff was something I'd never even thought of. So there's a lot more applications than I was aware of.
Yes, I think there's a lot more applications than a lot of people are aware of. And there's some strange ones that come up every day that people will call us and ask about them. I'm like, oh, never heard that one. Molding's a big one. Molds, like not what grows on cheese, but like a mold that they're forming something with. A company that manufactures hot tubs, one of our customers. So it puts it in a mold, that plastic, whether they vacuum it or they pour it in there. And those molds work so long, they can make so many products out of that mold before it kind of starts getting sticky, product sticks to it, and they have to clean it. And they don't want to necessarily profile it because they're not coating it. They just need to remove the old junk off of it and get it kind of back to new so they can make more products out of it. So that's a cleaning aspect of it. Plastic is really good at that, good at cleaning, but it's soft, not hard, so it doesn't profile, and we'll just clean things. An unusual one was we got a call from a company that was making a TV show. It was a TV show about the Bible, and they had a dock that they were building for a ship to come into, but it was biblical time. So they're trying to make this rough dock, but they have all new wood. And they want a blast machine, and they want to use sand because they're on the beach and they have all this sand. And the construction guy who was building the set is like, we have to make this look rough, like it's 1,000 years old, what they would use. And they want to blast it. So you take that old, normally you wouldn't want to do that to wood.
Right.
Because your nice wood is going to get all roughed up and destroyed, but they were using it to do that, to make it really rough looking and old. So that was it. Never had that one before. Not too many TV shows call us.
Yeah.
looking to
That's
blast.
really different. You talked about all the different applications where you're basically supporting people who make stuff, but you guys are manufacturers too, right? You're making this equipment. So talk a little bit about your business end on the manufacturing part and some of the challenges you have and opportunities you see.
Manufacturing, it's been a little tricky, little rough road over these last couple of years.
You're the first one to tell me that.
Yeah,
not. Yeah, definitely interesting times, right?
It's very interesting times, and at least we have good company in this. We're not the only ones, and with the crazy lead times and everything, it's quite the challenge now. But at least for the most part, our customers are understanding, because usually we're dealing with other manufacturers and everyone's in that same boat. They're no surprise when you say, oh, we have a long lead time, because it's not necessarily what we're manufacturing, but it's an electrical component we need that has a really long lead time. So we can have this huge machine ready to go, but it's waiting for a small little electrical part that won't work without it. And we're at the mercy of that little part coming in. So it's been quite the challenge, but everyone for the most part's understanding, and I think it's happening to everyone. That's our biggest challenge is supply chain issues now. Costs of things. Costs are just, seems like it's a never-ending thing. Every time we buy material, regardless what it is, it seems like we send out a purchase order 2 months ago for the product. We go to buy it today, and it's a price increase. We go to buy it 2 months from now, it'll be even higher. So we spend a lot of time adjusting prices now, which we try not to. We try to hold as much as we can, but like anyone, you have to make a profit. At some point, we can only absorb it for so long.
Yeah, especially when it's going up so much so fast, right?
Yes. Yep. And it's not like before things go up, and sometimes it's years. We've had prices that have been the same for years, because something goes up, but it's just a little bit. And we're like, nah, it's not worth changing the price. We absorb it and keep the price, keep everyone happy. But now it's just the cost of things. I think steel, from where it was 2 or 3 years ago, has probably quadrupled some of the things in price. So it's unbelievable. Whether it'll come back, I don't think so.
I don't either.
It's not one of those things. Usually prices don't come back down. That usually doesn't happen. I think it's just going to be a thing we're just going to have to get used to. Prices are higher, and hopefully we're hoping they level off.
Yeah, exactly.
At some point, I'm thinking, how can it keep going? How can everyone's prices just keep increasing and increasing? At some point, people aren't going to be able to buy things.
Yeah, that's a whole other discussion, isn't it?
Yep. As far as our manufacturing process and blasting, we blast as well. All of our equipment, obviously, most is carbon steel. All of our equipment gets powder coated. It gets blasted, obviously, before it gets powder coated. Usually it's either aluminum oxide or steel grit that we're using, depending on what the product is and what process it's going through for the blasting. Very important to have that coated. Prepped before that coating goes on. The powder coat. Powder coat is great, extremely durable. That's why we use it. We love having our stuff powder coated. But if you don't coat that, if you don't properly prepare that before that gets coated, you can have a lot of issues, which we've seen. We've even had components that have come into us that are powder coated that have not been properly prepared. And you have, especially on edges, steel right on the edges, people don't like to put a lot of attention into that. And powder coating is great, but if it doesn't have that surface prep, it'll just peel off, and it comes off in like a big chunk, unlike wet paint. But if you do prep it properly and get it on there, it'll adhere, and it's pretty indestructible for a coating. But that preparation is really key.
And hence your business, right?
Yep.
Straight to what you do.
And we've learned the hard way from getting things in that the difference of good surface preparation and bad or lack of surface preparation can really make or break you in a product. Nobody wants something that looks great and then the coating peels off in a month.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Now, you guys have been around a long time. You 70 years next year,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Well,
Mhm.
congratulations in advance.
Yeah, thank you.
Um, has there been much change? You talked about changing materials, but as far as the equipment goes,
Not drastic changes in the equipment. It's kind of a strange industry. It's really mechanical and almost kind of, it's been around a long time. Blasting's been around 100, 200 years of
yeah,
surface preparation and blasting, and it's not a whole lot has changed. More has changed in what we use to design our equipment from the old
oh
days.
yeah,
Where people are making drawings and it's all like 2D sketches of things, and now it's just a whole nother level where everything's done in modeling, 3D modeling.
yep,
We particularly use SolidWorks
mhm,
modeling software to design all our stuff, which has been, I couldn't even imagine that, a few decades ago doing that, and what we can do with it now, that we can design a product and see it and almost test it and know what it's going to be like and do before we even produce it. Where the
yeah,
old days, you'd make something, then you'd test it and realize, okay, that doesn't work.
right, yeah,
Scrap it.
tweak it,
Prototype one, scrap
yeah,
that. Started making another one,
yeah,
which was pretty costly and time consuming. And now it's changed drastically with having that 3D modeling and things that you can test within that software for load supports and airflows, and it's really come a long way. The fabrication equipment has come a long way as well from our old school. We used to do it with old brakes and shears that were very, very mechanical and setting them, to now we have 3D lasers that are
yeah,
cutting square tube. They can turn it and cut our name into things. Flat laser, just much quicker. They do such a clean job of cutting that you don't have to grind or smooth anything. It's just a nice edge. It feeds directly from our modeling software, so you're loading things into a machine and it cuts it exactly.
yeah,
Whether it's cutting one of them or it's cutting a million of them, it's going to
yeah,
cut them. They're all going to be identical. Where years ago that was a challenge.
yeah, yeah.
That's helped. The manufacturing process has come a long way.
I've done a good bit of work with the folks at Autodesk, and just hearing the stories of the things they do now versus, I mean, when I got into manufacturing, I was using one of the first versions of AutoCAD back when it had its own kind of tablet that you worked from, and
Yep.
the changes there are amazing. But what I never thought of before is how a business like yours, where it's still the end product is still somewhat low tech, or maybe
Mhm.
historical tech, hasn't changed a lot, but that whole design process and manufacturing um, environment have been changed so dramatically by leaps forward in technology.
Yes, I'm sure that's true in many industries that have that, a low tech product that you don't
Yeah,
think much of, like it hasn't changed in, centuries, and you're just making that same thing very low tech, but how they make it, that manufacturing process has changed, I'm sure, for everyone.
that's
Um,
really cool.
Safety's changed on it.
Yeah,
The speed, the quality has just gone, phenomenal. And how we make things, like our quality has gone, improved drastically over what was, a decade ago, from what we can do now versus those old mechanical machines were just
yeah,
not as accurate. Whereas now, making things on a laser, and it's identical, and really has come a long way. Robotics comes into play. That's on our stuff. There's a little bit, we do a little bit with like robotics in like a blast room. Having a robot in an environment, it makes good sense to have it where a person doesn't have to be in there.
sure. Yeah,
We're an unusual business because of what we do, and the abrasive blast equipment is kind of an unusual product in that it's kind of self-destructive because of what it does.
sure.
When you're blasting, if you think of what it's doing to that surface of metal, it's taking rust off in no time at all. Just blow the rust right off. Profile steel. If you hold it there, it'll actually go right through steel. It'll go
Yeah,
through steel plate if you hold it there too long. So if you think about what it's doing to that surface, it can do the same thing to parts of our own equipment. Anywhere
yeah,
that meat is traveling through it at a high speed,
yeah,
it's chewing up the equipment. So we're constantly trying to improve on it, not necessarily change our equipment, but just we're always working to improve what it's doing to our equipment. Always
mhm,
keeping that in mind, like, oh, how's that going to affect our equipment where it's wearing that spot all the time, So we have to, design around, the nature of the beast in that it's self-destructive nature.
Have you played around with like different materials or hardening processes, things like that?
Yep, and different materials to do it. Things that some of our rooms are coated, things are covered in rubber, different kinds of rubber to protect them. Urethane's a big one, very abrasion resistant. Urethane tubes and all we use on our vacuum systems where we're sucking up that media. And urethane becomes very, very slick and slippery that the media can slide through without chewing it up too bad. Whereas other items, it'll chew through certain things very, very quickly.
Right.
Even the blast hose, there's certain components on blasting equipment, your nozzles, your hose, anything that comes in contact with that airstream where that media is coming is a consumable product. And it's going to wear out. It's just kind of nature of the beast. And, educating people and making sure they understand that. Usually when we go and install, one of our products in someone's facility, we have to explain to them, like, this is a very maintenance intense piece of equipment. You're probably going to have to maintain this more than anything else in your shop. It's just, it's not our equipment versus someone else's equipment. It's just blast equipment does that. And you have to keep on top of it or it will wear itself out. We try to build in components that are, replaceable items that if you stay on top of it, you can replace those components before it wears out a more expensive, larger component. So we're trying to keep, always staying on top of people, like make sure you're checking that. We can't, we can provide service to people, go out and service it, but we can't, very expensive to have us come out, every month.
To monitor,
check on it. So it's really a big education thing and training maintenance guys that like, hey, you have to check on this. Like some things are daily, some things are weekly, some things are monthly schedules that you have to maintain this. And if you don't, and give it a couple of months, it's going to wear that part out, and then it's going to wear the next part. And instead of changing a $20 part, now you have to change $1,000 part.
Yeah, PMs become very important. Huh?
Yes, very, very important on blasting equipment.
Okay, you mentioned your equipment versus others, and my understanding is, well, you guys have been around a long time. You're still a relatively small player compared to some of your competitors. So, talk a little bit about how you're situated from a business perspective and how you fit in that big picture.
Yeah, we are smaller. We've been around a long time, but we've stayed small, managed to keep it small. Good or bad, we like to be smaller in that we can focus more on our customers, that we're not kind of cookie cutter making as many products as we can and just getting them out there. There's a range of blasting equipment from kind of like what you'd say like your hobbyist or homeowner type equipment, DIY equipment versus like industrial equipment. And we get people call us looking for, they're a hobbyist. They work on their car in their garage. They're like, oh, I want a blast cabinet. I'm like, yeah, you don't want one of ours. You'd love to have one of ours, but you're not going to want to hear the price of it. It's not for the person to use on the weekend here or there to blast something. But in the same way, those, the hobbyist, the DIY equipment that is in your garage, if you put that into an industrial application, is not going to make it through the week. Our stuff is designed, more expensive, but it's designed to last. It's designed to be used, by every day. Some of our customers are multiple shifts, so they're running 2 shifts a day, 5-6 days a week. So that equipment has to perform. It has to last, and that's what we focus on. Our smaller size lets us focus more, on our customers and be more specific, get them the exact needs they need. We're kind of more of we're like a higher end, more like custom company rather than a mass produced company. And I think we've stayed small because we like that. We like the relationships we have with our customers, and we'd like to keep it like that. As far as our competitors, a lot are bigger, that are out there. There's, big ones, small ones, higher end quality industrial, and then the less expensive models. Just trying to steer people of what they need. We don't want to try and sell someone one of our equipment they're not going to use very often, and we don't want one of our customers wasting their money on something. Oh, I found this one for half the price. I'm like, yeah, but it's not really what you want if it's not designed to be used every day, 6 days a week.
So as you look down the road, then stick with what you're doing. Are there any other directions you're thinking about? Anything you can share as far as where you're headed from a business perspective?
We've grown. We've grown over the years. We've grown to keep up with our quality. We've had to grow. That's probably one of our big things, is just keeping up with the times, making sure we're making the best product we can possibly make, for our customers. And usually that it involves us doing some changings, whether if we can't do it in-house, we have to outsource something to someone who has that equipment that can make it better than we can make it. We're not so much involved in that we have to make everything in-house. We have to touch everything. Our main concern is just making the best product we can make. If there's someone out there that can do something, bend a piece of metal or do it better than we can do, we will outsource it to that person to make sure it makes our equipment that much better. So we want to keep a handle on all that, and just always try to make the best we can make, and the best quality that's going to last. Try to keep that maintenance to a minimum.
Good. Is there anything we haven't talked about that folks ought to know?
No, other than it's just there's probably some unusual things out there that get blasted that people don't know about.
I'm sure.
Other than things that are getting painted and metal and cleaning and wood things that people are doing, cleaning up houses, wood log cabins getting blasted.
Oh, neat.
Yep. Unusual things. Fire damage is a weird one. People blast with baking soda. Sodium bicarbonate, and it has a lot of properties to it. Very clean. Again, another very soft media because it's baking soda, but it also has a deodorizing ability. Baking soda, like it does in your refrigerator. If there's fire damage to wood and you blast it with baking soda, it's not going to destroy the wood, but it will take all that charred fire damage off. And it actually takes away that smell as well.
Interesting.
An unusual thing. Log homes too. People want to clean up their log homes, which I never realized that many people had log homes, but they do and have to clean them up.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
What do you do for fun?
Try to travel a little bit. Depending on work.
Yes, understood.
Running a business and keeping busy kind of keeps me at work probably more than I should be, but I enjoy it, and I think it can speak for everyone here. All of our employees, everyone seems they like what they're doing, and they like to come to work and like to make a good product. And we probably all work here more than we should, but we're a small team, and we're very selective in who we hire and who we bring in, and we're like a small family. Look out for everyone, and we like to keep it that way, and make sure everyone's having fun. Now it's summer, so it gets a little more relaxed, a little more enjoyable. We're in Pennsylvania, so we get the 4 seasons, and we get grumpy days in the winter, cloudy for a week straight. And
right. Yes.
Cold,
I feel your pain up here in Michigan.
Oh yeah.
Understood. Well, so where do people find you then?
They can find us online. We're just TitanAbrasive.com, and abrasive is singular. There's no S on abrasive, because we're making the equipment, not the actual abrasives that you use. So we're just TitanAbrasive.com. All of our info is on there, phone number, address. We have an online store for parts, equipment. We try to put some prices online for some of our equipment to give people an idea. We have an RFQ form online, so if people are interested in finding out about a product, they can fill out the form. We're happy to give someone a quote. They can call anytime if they have questions on the product, and we'll help them find out what best suits their needs.
Wonderful. Well, this has been educational, as I knew it would be.
Yeah.
Brandon, thanks so much.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
You take care.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks for tuning in to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vinoski. Watch for new episodes dropping on the first and third Tuesdays of every month.